Marilyn, if you will lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We're here today for long class.
You have to figure that out. Some people pause, some people
Most people
don't.
pause.
We've got a
Some people
PowerPoint
explode.
presentation, so I'm on.
And justice for all.
No, I'm sorry. Freedom of Information.
Yes, Freedom of Information Act. In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of this meeting and its agenda were provided to all news media and persons requesting notification. Commissioner Blackout? Yes. Commissioner Clifford? Here.
You were on that.
Commissioner Engelmann? Here. Commissioner Laughlin?
Here.
Commissioner Platt? Commissioner
Right.
Poston?
Yeah.
Commissioner Woolsey?
I won't turn right around 2 seconds from now and say, can we have a roll call? That was funny. All righty. Now I'm done. Marilyn, can you see, or do you want us to slide down? No,
We
this
couldn't
is
get
not
both of them to work, and so we thought,
There it is, can you see it?
all right, everything that y'all are gonna see is in your handout. Okay? I'm Bill Hancock with Brittingham Group. We've been in front of you folks before. Thanks for having us back again. We appreciate the chance to present. Straight face in the room is one of the associates with our firm, Cody Teeter. He's actually the engagement leader for this audit. And it just so happens that he's also the engagement leader for the audit of the trust that we'll be talking about later on in this slide. In this presentation. I'd like to start off by saying the information that you folks are about to receive is independent. We are trying to educate you folks on what some of the rules are, the accounting treatments, and we're not making a recommendation in any direction in anyone's favor or against anyone. It's just putting this out there to let you folks know how this particular plan works, how the accounting works, and what it effect it has on your financial statements, which are what your lenders rely upon. It depends on what kind of interest rate you get if you can borrow money. Okay? So first off, other OPEB. We talk about OPEB. Well, that's other post-employment benefit plans. An OPEB is any plan that provides any benefit for any former employee. Okay. Now, specifically, what we're going to be talking about today is health care for former employees. All right. And so, the accounting for the cost of these future benefits is mandated. The reporting is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 75. This came out a couple of years ago. There was much discussion about it, a lot of teeth gnashing in the academic community about what it would do to the financial statements of governmental entities. You know, we don't know what the effect is going to be. We don't know how big the liability is going to be. We don't know how they're going to fund these things. And so, over the course of the years, they worked through all the bugs, and now they've published a method, and it went into effect fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018. And so, you folks have reported it now for 2 consecutive years. All right. And with Cody and I were trying to figure out how to best present this stuff. Well, let's do it this way. Where are we today? In other words, what's the situation right now? And okay, so that's where are we today? Now, how did we get here? What caused our financial balances to be what they are today? What things are going to drive future results? What levers are going to push and pull and make an amount go up or down? And then we need to talk about funding before it's all over with. If we're going to have a plan, we're going to create an obligation, we're going to have a method to fund that obligation. Okay? So that's the logic and the sequence of events that he and I put together. Like I said, next slide, Cody. Beginning of fiscal year end 2018, local governments that sponsor OPEB plans, they have to recognize your unfunded liability. GASB 75, I've included as an Appendix A. There's a summary from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board of the statement itself. It's not easy reading. It refers to actuarial studies and deferred inflows and deferred outflows and things that we don't use in everyday language. But it does give you a really good picture of what the academics were trying to do and the information they were trying to put out to the public. Most entities that sponsor OPEB plans have not been setting aside assets. They must be held in a trust to fund these future benefits. which means if you've got a big liability, but you don't have any assets to pay for it, it's gonna have a, large net liability on your books of records. And given the potential magnitude of this liability, it's important for entity leaders, you folks, and employees know the importance of taking any actions necessary to build a sustainable repair plan. This is all about what you're putting in place, what's it gonna cost, and then we give, you help folks have the decision, how we're gonna fund it, okay? Next slide. The district currently provides post-employment health, life, and dental care benefits for certain retirees and their dependents, all right? Appendix B, as I've noted there, is the actuarial report from Kavanaugh McDonald, which is who the district uses to do its actuarial measurements. That's got some interesting information in it too. We've pulled some of that information, plagiarized some of that information, and put it in here, hopefully in smaller bites that are easier to digest, and won't get bogged down in some of the technical things that they have in there. But stay tuned. There's some interesting things that you don't think about every day. All right, sustainability. Substantially all employees who retire on the state retirement plan are eligible to participate here. As long as they retire from the state retirement plan and they're 65 years old. Currently, the district pays 100% of the life and dental insurance premiums and all health insurance. And then for the employee, have to pay for the spouse and the family coverage if it applies. Okay? All right, the last evaluation that was done, actuarial evaluation was done, used a measurement date of June 30th, 2017, which was then rolled to December 31st, 2018 for use in the June 30, 2019 financial statements. Okay, so the information that we use is always a year lagging because they look back to see what the census information was and the demographic data, and they make their calculations based on that, and then they roll it forward. All right. Now, the district is affiliated with the South Carolina Other Retirement Benefits Employee Trust, SC Orbit. That is the trust where you folks accumulate money to satisfy this obligation. As I mentioned before, Cody's engagement leader on that audit. Okay, so we've got a unique position here where we have insight into the district's financial statements and also the trust's financial statements that houses the assets that you folks are setting aside to satisfy this obligation. Next slide. SC Orbit issues a publicly available financial report that includes audited financial statements and required supplementary information. In other words, it's got all the ifs and what fors when it involves this and about 111 other.
Oh yeah, it's a lot. Let's put it that way.
They hold the assets for over 100 other municipalities and special purpose districts. Anybody that's got a plan that's not a state agency and is funding their plan uses SC Orbit. Okay, that's who you folks have chosen to hold your assets while you're accumulating. This next slide is really the one that's the most telling. All right, so where are we today? We've got 3 columns here. All right, I had a pointer, but I don't think the TV's going to let me do it, so I might have to lean over your camera. Yeah, it might let me do it. You folks have your handouts in front of you, so if these letters, the numbers are too small, you can always look at what you have in front of you. I won't bite you, I promise. Okay, this column is the total liability. This is what the district has obligated itself to pay. This column are assets that have been specifically set aside to satisfy what's in column A. And A minus B is your net liability. In other words, you take your obligation less the assets you have set aside, and that's the net. Okay? So, at December 31, 2017, we had a liability of $9.2 million. This is the actuarial projected cost of the plan that you have in place right now to pay for health insurance costs for your employees after they retire. Okay? Service cost, meaning how much did it cost us this year? In other words, another year on the calendar ticked by, and so we have to accumulate what the next year's what's the cost is going to be. That came to $431,000. And the interest on this obligation, because it is a function of time value of money, so they charge interest on it, was $324,000. The difference between the actuarial experience and expected experience, actuarial experience meaning what the actual cost was, what the census changes were, versus what the estimated costs were and the estimated census changes were, came to about $3,900. changes in assumptions or other inputs, we're gonna get to that. This took your liability down by almost $1 million. We're gonna get to the reason for that in just a minute, okay? Benefit payments and implicit subsidy credit, this is the amount that is implied to be a benefit to the spouses and the families based on it being a group plan. So they're not having to get it on their own, they're getting it, this is what's the discount that they're receiving, or the benefit that they're receiving by not having to get their own insurance policy. Okay, so, next column, compute contributions employer. Well, we didn't really put in $290,000 last year. We put in $100,000, but $190,000 of that was benefits and subsidy credit. All right, so when you combine these two, this is what the district actually put in the plan last year. It was $100,000, and you made $1,631 in interest on those plan assets. Right now, we've got $101,600 at SC Orbit set aside to help accumulate to satisfy this obligation. And this last column over here, you can see where we take this and subtract this one, and we come to at the end of this report, which is December 31, 2018, which is the most recent information available we had to issue for June 30th, 2019, was $8.7 million. That's a lot. Let's talk about that. Any questions?
It's straight out of the economic.
Yeah, straight out of it. So this is where we are today. And next slide, Cody. The two things that this has to be measured against, number one is, remember I told you we had some estimates up here? Well, they're estimating what the healthcare cost inflation is going to be. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But the current healthcare cost inflation, if that was to go, if the inflation percent was to go down by 1%, it would take your liability from 8.7 down to 7. But if your inflation rate went up 1%, you'd have an $11 million obligation instead of an $8.5 million obligation. Discount rate, meaning the actual return on your assets, if you got 1% more than was projected, it would go from 8.7 to 7.3. And if you only got 3.1% instead of 4.1%, it would go up to 10.5. Okay, so we're here at this $8,755,620 number. Last slide we talked about how we got to that $8 million. This tells you what happens if this factor moves by 1% in either direction, and this by this factor if it moves 1% in either direction. Now, do we understand where we are today in that in these points of reference? Because this is what we're going to build the rest of this on. We need to make sure everybody's got a good understanding of where we are and why. Sir.
Okay, so since this passed for 2017, and the 100+ folks that are in the OPEB, how many of them are fully funded? So this $8.7 million that the Public Service District now is liable for, how many of those other 100+ members in OPEB are fully funded?
How many school members are fully funded?
Oh, there's not very many, because I mean, like I said in the beginning, not a lot of, municipalities have been putting money aside, to prepare for this liability, because, they just got smacked with it.
I can't think of one, Chief. Now, some of them have made a concerted effort to really start muscling up on the contributions, basically the past 2 years, because when the reporting standards changed, that's when they said, we better get going. Nobody's fully funded at Apple.
And the liability is constantly changing, so even if you get close to fully funded, liability shoots up or down.
Yeah, if your census changes, you have a huge swing up or down. Prime example, if a person in their 60s retires, and a person that replaces them in their 20s, your liability shoots way up, because the amount that's going to take to satisfy this 20-something is much more than this, because in theory this one has much longer to live. Okay, so being young is bad. All right.
Thank you.
All right, so are we clear on how we got here? I want to make sure, us number nerds, we really love this stuff, and I realize it's as dry as hard and it's not very interesting, but I want you to know, yes ma'am.
But when you said we were gonna skip over that 955,000,
I'm gonna come back to that, yes.
alright, but that might help, for all of the, are you saying how we got to this point, saying that this is what we're responsible for at this point because of the 2017, what was allocated then, and how does it get changed and stuff like that?
Well, we're gonna go into, I'm gonna go into a lot of that stuff coming up, but specifically $955,000. To answer your question, and I'm gonna come back to it, but the short answer to your question is that originally, they had a 3.5% interest rate on the projected rate of your future contributions. They changed that to 4.25 or 4.1. 4.5. We're gonna give that exact number a little later on, but.
Yeah.
They took the projected interest rate on the return on your assets up. And so that being amortized out over the whole life of everybody in your census moved the needle big time. All right. Remember what I said, if you change the rate of return on your assets from 4.1 to 5.1, there's your $1.5 million difference right there. This wasn't quite a full % move, but that going from here to here is why you saw that $955,000, same last year.
Is the discount rate sensitivity, is that the service credit, the benefit payment and implicit subsidy credit?
Nope.
What is that?
The discount rate is the rate of return expected on the assets going forward. Okay? It's a whole, if you're taking finance, it's a whole future value, present value thing. And
Okay.
It's not fun. It's not.
Right, yeah, I know, I've taken it.
It's number nerd stuff. Okay?
It's what?
Number nerd stuff.
I don't know why I keep getting feedback. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I kind of remember that this was all started based on an assumption of some numbers, and they were not quite true. Or they were pie in the sky, quake, or.
His question was, well, repeat your question.
From conversations, the numbers that this program was started on weren't realistic. It was either too high or too low, or went into it with too much expectation, or something like that. Or am I thinking of another insurance program, or?
Mr. Lockland, that doesn't ring any bells with me as far as this
It
plan.
must have been another number we were working with.
I don't know.
Okay.
All right, so next slide, Judge. How did we get here? First of all, we've got an actuarial firm that we use called Kavanaugh McDonald. I say we use the district, we use these people. They're probably the most respected actuarial firm in the Southeast. They do hundreds of these for clients just like you every year. So what they do is they came up with this actuarial study based on census information, longevity estimates, predictions on healthcare inflation, wage growth and inflation, expected rate of return on assets, and the life expectancy stuff that they get from what is it, the Board of Governors of Actuaries or something. And they ball all this stuff up, and so they've told you, basically on an employee by employee basis, this is how long they're gonna live, and this is how much it's gonna cost for their insurance once they separate, okay? And so that's how we got the number. So what can we do to reduce the liability? That's the question that I ask. There's only three things that the district can do to change this liability. You can change the benefits offered. In other words, you can go up or down on the amount that you're willing to provide or grant to your retirees. You can change the criteria for eligibility. Question, how many years should they be an employee with the district? And what minimum age may they retire to receive this benefit? Those numbers can go up and down. If it's a 5-year service eligibility requirement, that's not that high a hurdle to get over. That means a lot of people in the future are going to qualify for this. If it's a 20-year eligibility, you got to service, you got to work for the district. Not be in the state retirement system, but work for the district for 20 years. That's going to drive that number down because there's going to be fewer and fewer folks that are going to serve the district for 20 years as opposed to 5. And the third thing is making contributions to the SC scoreboard plan for its benefits only, meaning cash coming out of the district and going into the trust. Okay?
So the current requirement for the number of years served is what?
Number of years served.
10.
Is it 10, Lacey? I
Yes.
think we have that in, I think we have that in here, yeah.
Yep, I believe it's 10.
It's 10 years.
I think it's 10 years. I believe it is.
Any contributions made after the measurement date will be added to the contributions employee line. In other words, this measurement date was December 31/18, and so if you folks would have made a contribution between December 31/18 and June 30/19, it will be added to this. Right? It will be in addition to the report that came from Cavanaugh McDonald. We didn't have any of that. Next slide. We showed you the sensitivity analysis, okay, for both the healthcare inflation and the return on your assets. What will happen if we move 1% in either direction? You know, to put in different terms, if the healthcare cost trend rate was to increase 5%, your liability would go up by 2.3 million bucks. If the projected rate of return on your assets went down by 1%, it added another 1.8 million to your liability. If either of these situations were to occur, it would put the district in a situation where your deficit and your net position would be even bigger, you'd be even further with negative equity, okay? If they both happen, you can see that's probably a $4 million pop to your equity of the district. And so now you're upside down, you owe more than you have, okay?
What's the likelihood of both?
I couldn't speculate on that, Mr. Laughlin. I mean, we're gonna get into what these rates are, and I think when we do, y'all are gonna look at me and say, that is completely unrealistic, and I'll agree with you. But we'll get into those details in a minute. All right, next slide. Now we get into some of the rules. What are they talking about? What do they mean? They're assuming that normal inflation is 2.25% a year, okay? I don't agree or disagree with these numbers. These are the numbers the actuaries use to protect your liability, okay? They're saying that real wage growth is going to be 0.75%. In other words, wage growth is going to outpace regular inflation by 0.75% to where wage inflation is an actual 3%. Okay? Salary increases, including wage inflation, anywhere from 3 to 7% a year. So they're saying that they project salaries here at the district are going to go up on an inflation-weighted basis between 3 and 7% a year. Reasonable, unreasonable, you folks govern, you know whether that's the case or not. Now, when we talk about bond, they use the municipal bond index rate for your rate of return calculation. In 2017, it was 3.55%. Now they're saying that you should expect 4.1% return on your assets over a long period of time. Now, is that reasonable? You folks have savings accounts. You know what they returned when the interest rates were high. You know what they're returning right now. Over a long period of time, that's probably close, wouldn't you think? Have any of you ever had a savings account at one point in time got 4.1%? Yeah, right? Okay.
Back when I was a kid.
This is where y'all are gonna look at me like I've got two heads. They say that the healthcare inflation is only going up by 7.5% per year, and then by 2023 it's going to only go by 5% a year. That's what they said.
That's based on the state plan, right?
All this information came from FEMA, yeah. So we can believe it or not, but these are where the numbers have come from. And they're saying that once somebody hits Medicare, oh, inflation's only going to be 5.5%, and then it's going to drop down to 5% like this year. That's what they say.
That's what they're projecting right now.
That's what they're projecting. All right, yeah. This is another one. This is some definitions for you. Discount rate, this is a finance term based on the single equivalent interest rate. This is basically the long-term muni bond rate. What it is, it's 4.1% right now. That's what we're using for our actuarial expected rate of return on assets going forward. Mortality, they've got a chart. Again, Lisa, this is all PIVA stuff. They've got a chart. They're using the RP-2014 mortality table for employers employees with a 95% multiplier. Why aren't we gonna live 100% of our expected lives? Do we eat too much barbecue and drink too much sweet tea? I don't know. But they're saying they're measuring us at a 95% multiplier. Us being employees of district. Okay? The demographic actuarial experience study adopted by South Carolina Retirement System PORS. Okay? Again, that's PIVA information. And the per capita healthcare cost trends, all that is done on experience concurrently. They did this review concurrently when they did our beginning measurement. Okay? So you can see, like we talked about earlier, there are many, many levers to pull and push in this. And so how do you evaluate it? What do you do to make sense? Most of these factors are out of your control, right? You know, they could change the inflation, the expected inflation rate on health insurance. You're not in control of that. The mortality tables could change. You're not in control of that. The projected long-term rate of return on muni bonds over a long period of time, you're not in control of that. They may use a different table with a 98% multiplier instead of a 95% multiplier. You're not in control of that. The only three things you can do, as we talked about before, is change the benefits that are offered to participants, change your criteria for eligibility, or muscle up on the contributions into the trust. Okay? The district contributed $100,000 to the plan in fiscal year 19. If the liability stayed at $8.7 million and didn't increase at all, which we know it will, because we've got an interest factor and we've got a service factor too. So it's going to increase. But let's just say for a minute it's going to stay the same. At the current funding level, if we spent $100,000 a year, it would take us 88 years to become fully funded.
I'll be retired by then.
You gonna blow?
No, I'm just, I'm putting this out there. I want you folks to know what you're signing for. Next slide, please. All right, so it's got a real negative effect on the district's net position. So let's talk about that for a minute. As you folks know, your financial statements pretty much measure the district in two silos. One is the governmental type, which is fire, solid waste, and is funded by property taxes and solid waste fees. The other is wastewater treatment, which is funded by wastewater fees, sewer bills. Okay? This OPEB liability has a negative effect on both of these operations. All of you have been in here when we've talked about issuing bonds, looking at debt. One thing that's different about OPEB liability than pension liability, remember we talked about pension liability before, that's something that's come up with by the state, you have to put it on your financial statements, there's nothing you can do about it, you can't pay it off early. And so a lot of the bond rating agencies, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Fitch, they realize that. They say, okay, if you've got a $10 million pension liability on your books, and you're in the South Carolina Retirement System, well, we know where that number came from, we know that you're stuck with it, the legislature put it on you, it's not something you can do anything about. OPEB liability is completely voluntary on the sponsor. Okay? This entity made a decision to provide benefits to retirees, and we've recorded the liability to provide those benefits, or what those benefits are going to cost in the future. And so that liability is looked at by the bond rating agencies. Okay? Because it is something you're in control of. You're in control of how big the liability is to begin with, and you're in control of how to fund it to bring it down. All right. So if the district decreases its OPEB liability, either funding the plan more, changing benefit terms, or the benefit terms, eligibility terms, and change the benefits offered to the participants, then unrestricted net assets would go up. In other words, your equity would go up if this liability went down. Okay.
How many years has OPEB been active with the district?
Best we could tell, this district elected to provide benefits to its retirees somewhere in 2005, 2008, which was between 2003 and 2008 is when it kind of swept across the state. A lot of entities started doing this. Well, we need to do something for our retirees. The state pays health insurance for life, and we want to keep our employees you know, the whole still, it was between 2003 and 2008, as best we can tell, this was around 2005, 2008, somewhere in there, okay? Back then, you didn't have to account for what the future costs were gonna be, right? You just had to pay the insurance, or the cost of the insurance costs for your retirees, pay as you go. And so as long as you paid those costs every year as you incurred them, no harm, no foul, retirees got their health care, you didn't have to pick up a liability, everybody got to pay. Well, GASB 45 in 2012, 2013 made you pick up the amount, the current year amount that you needed to fund actuarially. Not the whole liability, just the current year cost, okay? And so people started sitting up and taking notice. Well, we're not paying the whole amount in the future, we're just paying for our retirees' health insurance now. Well, the difference started to grow. And then in 2018 effective, they changed it to where, no, you can't just tell us what the difference is in the amount you're required to pay versus what you didn't pay. We want to see the entire liability for the entire plan for all the employees. And so it's a lot of heavy duty lifting for the actuaries to come up with this. And so that's kind of the evolution of where we've got.
Because I think North Charleston Police and Fire went through the same thing around 2009, where they started realizing the things that they were, you know, oh, we'll provide 100%. Then they're like, whoa, and they sent out a memo to everybody, you know, your 20-year cops on the street, your 30-year firemen, going, well, we're gonna have to decrease it by this much, because they didn't want to take the rug completely out from under them, because what if that was one of the premises they were hired on?
Exactly.
So you don't want to just go whip. So then,
It's
but things go up, so they had to explain to them the difference.
It's a horrible place to be in, to promise a benefit and then have to contemplate taking it away. Horrible. But basically what happened in the 2003-2008 time frame, which oddly enough, was before the global financial crisis, okay? Bodies like yours, city councils, special purpose district commissioners, they sat down and somebody proposed this to them, and they all agreed this sounds like a good idea, we want to provide this, and so they voted on it. Problem was, nobody knew what the cost was going to be. Nobody knew. Okay?
Well, you know, I know this is gonna sound like a Democrat coming out of my mouth, but if you don't pay somebody a livable wage, how are they gonna be able to pay their portion of any of this? Now, that was a Republican response, and I am a Republican. But, I mean, you can't pay somebody 20 grand a year and say, here, live off this, support your family, support your kids, pay for their education and everything. So you either gotta bump up salaries or something to compensate for that.
I agree with you 100%. I'm not here to offer you an opinion on whether you have a good plan, a bad plan, or if you should make changes to your plan. To show you how it works.
But I think in doing so, we make people more dependent on the government for SNAP and all that, because they can't support their family on what they make. But we still need firefighters, you know, fresh out the, you know, farm firefighters and all.
I agree.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. We talked about this twice already, but we're ahead again. We're going to do three things to reduce the plan liability. You make more contributions to SC Orbit for plan benefit usage. You're writing a check and sending it to the trust. You can change the benefits offered, and we've talked about that. You know, what percent of the health care you're going to pay, and whether you're going to offer dental, vision, that kind of stuff. And then changing the criteria for eligibility, which is, most important part of that is years of service to the district. Plan funding is approved through the town's budgetary process. The revenue sources that will be used to fund the plan's liability consist of the following and only the following. This is the only place you're going to get your money from. Property taxes, solid waste fees, and the wastewater fees.
We do not have solid waste fees.
Y'all do a solid waste tax on? Okay.
Maybe we should.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting you not either. Okay. Is that a question, Ms. Clifford? Okay.
I'm Ms. Porler.
All right, during the budgetary process, district representatives We'll need to keep in mind that property tax millage and wastewater service rates may need to be adjusted in order to fund this liability now and in the future. If we're gonna offer it, and we're gonna obligate ourselves to it, then we have to fund it. And the only way to fund it is through property taxes and wastewater treatment services. If there are benefit reductions to the district's plan, the liability's gonna go down. And so again, some examples of benefit reductions. And this isn't what we're recommending, okay? These are examples of what to do if this is a road you choose to cut out. Increase the portion of the health premium paid by the retirees. Setting a cap on the amount of premiums that the district will pay. We've got one client who is in a similar situation, and they said, well, every year this amount keeps going up and up and up, but we're gonna cap it at X. And so we're gonna obligate ourselves to a monthly premium amount of X. Anything goes, if it keeps going up, the retiree's gonna have to pick up that part. That's what they do. Increasing plan deductibles and co-payments. I'm not sure how easy that'll be. I think the state
We
plan
can't do that.
determines that and it's fixed,
Yeah,
right?
we can't do that.
Right, that's can't do that. Offering fewer benefits, eliminating items as Medicare B premium reimbursements, vision care, or dependent coverage. And I'll let dental care off. You can put dental care off there, something that you could take away. Changing the criteria of eligibility is another way to do it. Basically, we're raising retirement eligibility requirements for health. In other words, you're raising the minimum age, all right, that they can do it. And then curtailing the coverage after the retiree become eligible for Medicare.
Age or years served, is that changing the criteria of eligibility?
Raising retirement eligibility. Retirement eligibility is a combination of both.
You can't do those either.
So, next slide. Some entities have changed some of these particular items. They've pulled or pushed some of these levers for different folks. They've grandfathered folks in who started work before, pick it up. People that come to work from between that date and this date are all going to get a different set of benefits for them. And the folks that are coming to work today and in the future are going to get a different set of benefits and life. If you made an obligation to these people, it could be argued that you're morally bound to keep that. You change things for the folks that are here now, and then you put another set of rules in for people who are starting brand new. And I had to put this in there. If you make any of these changes, you consider any of these strategies. First thing you need to do is consult legal counsel. The second thing you need to do is to consult your actuaries to find out what the new cost is going to be. Okay? In other words, you come up with, we want this many years of service for the district, minimum retirement age of X, and here's the benefits we're going to offer. Now send our census information off to an actuary and see what that cost is. And that is how the OPEB plan works.
I have a question.
It's fine.
One of the criteria was, the benefit that we offer people coming here to work. And, listening, doing all these changes, I mean, what would be the incentive to come here to work? If the benefits, have good benefits. I mean, one of the reasons people are here is because of what the PSD has been offering. And PSD's been around since 1961, been offering good benefits. I mean, we have to think about that.
Well, yes, ma'am, you do. I wanted to give this board the tools by which to measure how much it's going to cost. Okay. This leads into your budget decisions that you folks are going to be making in the next couple of months. Okay? I mean, you're going to have to budget for a contribution to go to this trust if you choose to send it. You're going to have to, any future expenditures of money you're going to have to budget for, right? And so if you pass a budget ordinance, it's going to be based on funding that. Well, that amount has to come from somewhere. this gives you the tools to come up with whatever that amount is. That's what this was about.
I feel like that 10-year bar is too low. I was a, county employee, and I think our bar at that time was like 26 years.
It's all over the place, Ms.
Yeah.
Wilson. I mean, when I was on East Richmond Public Service District, it was a 5-year service period. There was no minimum retirement age, okay? We had to do some, we had to do some soul searching on to come up with something that was fair. Nobody wanted to get rid of it. Legally, I don't think you can, right? If you've made promises for future obligations to these folks that have been here for 20, 30, 40 years, I mean, I don't think you can pull a rug out from under them now. I don't think legally you can. But we had to make some hard decisions as far as what was fair. And fair means fair to the employer and to the employee.
And to the taxpayer.
Yeah, especially the taxpayer. So, if you want to know what a right answer is, I don't know there is one.
Well, I'm just saying that to the other people here, but I feel like that's too low. And, we also need to be clear about, like, when you reach 65 or whatever, that you should go on to Medicare.
And that's mandatory with the state plan.
Yeah.
State plan,
So
they
will.
switch you over to is it a Medicare supplement plan?
Yes.
Yeah. So that you
That's
got-
just the same cost or
So we're
higher
paying
than the
for it.
regular insurance.
So we're paying for like a Part B after that?
Well, what she just said was when, an employee switches from regular health insurance through you to Medicare, the supplement policy costs just about as much as the regular premium.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I don't think that you've got a choice in monkeying with the benefits and taking that premium down, do you? I mean, it is what it is.
We do have the subsidy, whatever we want to subsidize the payment for. We don't have to subsidize any of the employer portion. And right now, we subsidize a good bit of it. So that is probably, between that and capping the amount that we would subsidize would probably be the way to lower the,
No, my question
liability.
was, the premium for a Medicare supplement policy through the state, you can't change that premium by alternating benefits, so it is what it is.
it is what it
It is
is.
what it is, right, so you don't have any choices in
But she's saying that we could do a percentage of it. We don't have to do 100%.
well, you can if you want to.
You can cap it.
And we don't do 100%.
You folks can, this is your plan, you can modify it, adjust it any way you want to. I'm trying to make sure that you folks know all the levers are out there that you can pull.
So with the information you provided and what you know to be in place, where does that put us? Like, as far as, you said we fund 100% of the OPEB now, is that correct?
100% of the employer portion. The employee pays 100% of the employee portion, as dictated by the state. And where we're at right now is that I've got two.
That's based off a state plan, not off of this one, which is optional, is that what you, like, OPEB, would you consider that an option? Is that what you-
What she's saying is right now, when you have somebody that's retired from here, the district's paying 100% of their health
Okay.
insurance and none of their spouse or dependent coverage, right?
Incorrect.
How much is the spouse, we're paying for
We are paying a percentage of the employer portion. There's an employee portion and an employer portion that makes up 100% of the plan cost. The retiree pays the entire employee portion based on the state program. The amounts the state dictates as employee portion versus employer portion. Most of our retirees are long-term retirees that have 100% of the employer portion paid.
So the district is paying 100% of whatever the retiree's share is for the retiree, not for spouse or dependents. Is that correct?
No. If they have, right now, the way the plan is written, if they have spouse or dependent, it's based on their years of service as to how much the plan pays.
Okay. But in all situations, the retiree is having 100% covered.
Not
For
their
the
employer.
The employer portion,
Yeah.
right,
Employer, right.
right.
But everything bounces around so much. Okay, we're federal retirees at my house. My husband gets an offset of his social security. He should get over $1,800 a month. He gets $140 because he's a federal retiree. But now we pay $140 something a month for the Part B. Now, Federal Blue Cross Blue Shield is giving you an $800 rebate every year. Why even take the $140 a month if you're gonna give me an $800 rebate?
Who can explain the federal government?
That's the same reason you go to a car dealership and you get a special Christmas holiday discount when they can do the same thing all year.
Well, there's really no gift horse in the mouth.
I think the one thing is,
Or they're trying to get you to get your own plan instead of being on
Say,
theirs.
here's what I won't tell me how much it is. But, you know, it doesn't make any sense because the state Federal Blue Cross Blue Shield doesn't give a rebate, but the feds do. Where you're taking away from it in the Social Security side and then giving us an $800 gift a year. Guess what? It's not a gift, it's my money.
What were you saying about, or they just fund their own plan? Is it-
Well, I don't know how the federal government works, but I would think that they are incenting you with that $800 rebate if you get your own Medicare Part B plan instead of going through their plan. I don't know. I'm just saying that might be why they do it.
I think that I'm on Medicare, and I'm 35 years old, but I'm on Medicare, and it's that's how that I don't get a rebate, and also it's about a seventh of my Social Security a month is taken for Medicare.
Well,
Part of that's
you know, my own son is on Medicaid, he's 39, and boy, that's a deal if you can get it. I wish I thought of that when I was 39. But, you know, my thing is, there's a difference in the Medicare and Medicaid
Yeah.
side of
And
it.
people always think that,
Tremendous.
yeah, that I'm confused, and oh, no, you're on Medicaid, and I think, no, I'm on Medicare.
Yes, it's a good, just
all
good
about
deal.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
But you know, once you don't take the Medicare Part B, you can't go back and say, I want that now. You're out.
Well, let's do
Well, you
this.
can, but it costs you money
okay, we're
every
getting off the
month.
subject and I'm confused anyway.
well, if I may say, I think the important thing is, the federal government can actually print their own money. We cannot print our own money. We're stuck with mainly property taxes and our sewer fees, and that hits home to our people. And we can't raise taxes any other way, unless we start charging for garbage cans. I don't know what to tell you. But we've got to think about that when we, and I feel like the bar is too low at 10 years. And what Inez says, well, people come to us for our benefits. Well, I work at a place now, I get no benefits, none.
But you work for a private entity, you know.
Well, the majority of business and people work in America work for small businesses. There's not that many Bowens out there. There's one in this town, but there's thousands of small businesses that offer no benefits whatsoever. And, yeah, here we are. But,
$600 a month, but I'm not on any medicine or have no pre-existing injuries.
Yeah.
How you like that?
That's how my husband's is.
yeah, so, yeah, they work for us for our good benefits, and the government, the state healthcare plan is good, and it's great. But, and like he said, this retirement stuff, a lot of it's optional, and we can make our own decision here. I really feel like this 10-year thing is too low, and we don't have to do it 100%, we could do 50%. Our employee handbook states quite clearly, the last page, the last paragraph says, every year the commissioners decide how much to pay. I've yet to see from this organization, somebody hand me a contract. This is my employment contract. It says I get these benefits. I want to see that contract. If somebody made employees, well, you've employees out here, show me your contract where we promised you to pay for all this. I'd like to see it.
Well,
And
the
I'd
only
like to see
thing
them
there-
vote on when we decided this.
Only thing there is we tell the CFO, you come back, it was done last year, you lowered it by 1/2 mil to 3 mils. We got our budget, no lower. Okay, we come back and we lower it 1 mil. a whole whopping $110,000-$120,000. But they'll raise it over in this department and say, it's like the old school board thing, don't look over here, look over here. Here's what we're doing. Now, don't focus on this. Because when I was on the school board, 2002, but it was $190 million. Today, the budget is $500 million.
But you still only have one pie to cut up so many ways, and when he's telling us that we're incurring a liability that is astronomical, going up
88
at the
years?
rate that it's at, it's kinda like, you know, it's just a, you know, we've got to make some adjustments, but what I'm wondering is that when do we take that into consideration with what's the best plan for the employees and for the taxpayers? So that's where we're at.
And our function as commissioners is the survivability of the district. I know somebody got up here and said, I thought y'all were looking after us employees. No, we've got a function, fire, water, sewer, and that is the survivability of the district.
But that's comprised of the people that work it.
Well, if we go into debt and you have to close down shop, they're gonna lose their job.
Well,
That's how a real business
Well,
would
we
operate.
got a clean Moody report this time with you.
Well, I'm not Moody's, but you got a clean audit opinion. My audit opinion doesn't have anything to do with your financial condition. My audit report has to do with, are your financial statements accurate? Are they presented fairly? You could be underwater, and I could say, you're underwater, but you were reporting properly, and you get a clean audit from me.
And that's your function, right?
All I do is opine on whether or not they're fairly stated in all material respects, that's all.
Well, see, I've asked for it since last summer, haven't seen it yet. Okay, this department asked for $2 million. Bring me in January how much they have in their budget now, so I'll know if you're on task for your budget, or do we need to lower your money availability to another percentage. And that really has not happened. We've seen a little, look at this, don't look at this. But, you know, that's what I want to say. I want the budget put out on the table and say, here we go from the right corner to the left corner.
I thought we got something a couple of weeks ago that said.
Each month that's been sent, and it has
Yeah,
current
I read
budget,
it.
amended budget, where we're at,
I
and
read it
what's
because
been
I
spent.
send
Yes,
you, I
ma'am.
send you questions, don't
Yes,
I?
ma'am.
So I read it, I've sent him questions, I said, what's this for? And
It's
he
been
knew
sent to
it.
all the commission each month at the end of the month.
Well, I'm married to a financial nerd. It's not a good thing. But, you know, one thing
Also, we post on the
that if you
transparency.
said, I
Does that
need
go up to the department heads?
$1,200,000.
Believe it on your own stuff, you can pull it up.
You didn't use but $500,000. Next year, we can't give you $1.2 million.
You know, I anticipated this leading into a budgetary conversation.
And you're right.
And I have something here that I think will be helpful.
Oh, okay.
This is the budget process my church went through in 2010. And so it's 10 years old. It's not a big secret. It's a spreadsheet.
Are you finished with the insurance?
Unless you have any more questions. I can come back to it at any time too, Ms. Brown.
No, you said you were gonna come back to something. Did you come
The
back?
$955,000.
Yeah, you forgot about that?
We talked about that, the $955,000 change, which reduced your liability, was due to the fact that they took your estimated rate of return on your assets going forward from 3.5% up to 4.1%. So with a greater rate of return on a projected investment amount, you're gonna have a larger asset that grows quicker, which brings your liability amount down.
But unfortunately, this very much relates to our budget process.
It does.
Yeah, we just can't say, no, we're not gonna discuss that now, it's not the budget process. It is in the budget process.
If we get some connectivity, I've got,
Well, nothing changed, it just, no.
You know, my church was underwater forever, Trinity downtown. And they said, well, just keep spending, we'll find it, we'll find it.
Here we go. All right, yeah, here we go. All right. All right, so is that scroll all the way to the top? Yeah, it is. Okay. Here's what we did, and this is what I've suggested, and I've got several clients that do this in the budget process. This is simple, it's collaborative, and we didn't have a screen like this. We literally projected it onto the fellowship hall wall. So we threw it up on the wall and saw what stuck, okay? This is the summary sheet for our 3 different revenue sources, and these are our departments, if you will. All right. Cody, go to revenues. All right. So these are our revenue sources that we think come in. This should look familiar if you've ever served on the church finance committee. All right. Pledge revenue. You got pledge offerings. We've got investment income. We've got stuff from Kirknight dinners. And so, Cody, do me a favor. We'll keep this simple. I want you to take the amount in this box right here, the $500,
Okay.
and delete there. Put 0 in that box. 0. Okay. Go back to your overall. We're $500 under budget. Okay? Go back to revenues and put that $500 back in there. Right here.
Right there.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Go back to overall. We're back in balance. Come over here to stewardship. All right, stewardship. So the envelopes that we pass out to the congregation, there was a huge, let's say there was a huge fire. Now these envelopes are going to cost, put $10,000 in that box, Cody, where the 700 is. All right, now come back to overall. $9,300 over budget. You know what I'm saying? So you put something together like this, and you'll notice you've got budget and actual for 1, 2, 3 trailing years, so you can tell what department has spent what compared to what their budget was. For instance, in 2009, the education ministry had $33,000 budgeted, but it only spent 20. Okay, so this is just a tool. All right, this is simple. All right, it's not. It can't be complicated because I'm making it. All right, if it was complicated, I couldn't do it. Okay, go back to where you were and just see the balanced budget again. Stewardship and $700. Now, go back to overall. So for Jamestown Public Service District, I could envision you doing 2 of these. One for your general fund, and one for your wastewater fund. And as long as you get a dash in your little yellow box, you know everything's okay. And if it's not, if it's over or under, you got some work to do. Go find out and go cut something here. Now the terminology we use, go to outreach code, this tab right here. A little bit of a shame to this, to be honest with you folks, because discretionary benevolence, in other words, money that we gave outside the 4 walls, out of a $800-some-odd-thousand budget, we want 14 grand. That's shameful. They always told me in church, you need to give away more money outside the walls than you spend on the inside of the 4 walls, right? Well, this can be one of your departments, all right? So you've got salaries, benefits, gasoline, utilities, office supplies. Can you envision it? You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but the stuff that we get in our packets, I know it's hard to put together, but to me, the readability on it doesn't tell me a darn thing.
Well-
And I don't even know how you come up with the questions, Kathy, because I'm not picking up what they're laying down. Either I need a graph, maybe I am that dumb, or I need something to make it give me, where are we going? Are we going up or down? And you see what I'm saying?
Well,
I need it to be more user-friendly.
Well, you don't have to put all this historical data. You can just have these 2
Yeah, but
columns.
that also helps with somewhat of a trend
It
to
does.
at least indicate where and what's going on.
And it does, but I will admit that this jumbles up the picture and maybe murkies the water. Now, what we did was we told each ministry chair, aka department head, bring your wish list. This is what you're gonna ask for, okay? And as long as you can get everybody's asked for, look at the revenues, okay? As long as we can get this number to add up to what we want it to be to cover up what everybody's wishing for, we're good. But on here, you can envision this line being property tax revenues. The property tax revenues is simply a function of millage times the assessed value, right? We know what the assessed value is. The auditor publishes that every year. So you put that number out here somewhere. And in another box over here, you type in the number of mills you want to apply, and that puts that. And just like that, you can see what the change in the millage would do to your budget. Just like that. You know, if this were the wastewater budget, revenues, this line item is wastewater fees. Okay, well, you know what it was for last year, and you know how many customers you have, so let's take a function of last year and move it up by 1% or 2%, meaning a 1% increase or a 2% increase on wastewater fees, or going the other way. You get to do it when everybody's in the same room, you're all looking at the same thing, and anybody can ask anything. Have your department heads here? Explain what their askings were. Why did you need, if you spent $100,000 on gasoline last year and you're asking for $200,000 of gasoline this year, why is that? Well, the price of gas doubled, okay? That makes sense. Right. You know, the salaries, we know what the salaries are, and a lot of the other expenses are functions of those salaries. Like what? Your FICA tax, retirement plan contributions, workers' comp, right? And you know you're gonna have health insurance to pay for your district employees, right? You know what your utility bills are gonna be, because you take what you paid last year and you bump it up a little bit, because that's what the power company does, right? They go up every year. You got a pretty good idea what your vehicle maintenance is gonna be. Folks watching over y'all's fleet can tell you which ones are gonna need more attention, which ones are new and will need less attention. So everything is a known. And so if you put it in a simple format like this, it's something that everybody, it translates a big picture to everybody in whatever small bite you want. You're welcome to have this.
Well, I'd like to see something like that implemented, because that makes a whole heck of a lot more sense to me than what we've been getting. And I asked somebody one time over there, why do we get this? They said the
Ours is
commissioner
very
one time.
similar, it doesn't.
We've had it for 3 years.
Yeah, ours is very similar to that, it shows the percentage, it shows the changes. So,
Well,
we
I
can
think it's
modify,
what
but
we
it's very
want. Here's
similar.
what we want, you make it happen. I would agree with both of these 100%. I'd like more of my money to spend. But you know, I live on a budget just like everybody else. We sat down at Christmas, I have a $20,000 a year food and drink budget. Then my husband said, this has got to give. And I said, you quit eating, it can give. That's the way things are. But we don't get the wish list, and because all we heard last year, and I remember Marilyn's comment, it'll stay with me till the day I die. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. They asked last year to lower the budget. 1 to 2 meals, actually would have liked 3. Yeah, I would have too. All we heard, we can't pay our firemen, we'll be bankrupt, that can't happen, that can't, there's float in any budget. Because if we're living penny to penny, something's really wrong with what we're doing.
And we were getting the information way too late to make any necessary adjustments as we came in, and they said, go ahead and not pass the budget, and we're gonna get a crappy rating, and nobody's ever gonna lend you money again, basically. What it boiled down to. So I remember that night too.
That's right, you're right. You can't do something on
Too
the
much,
last
too little, quick, but I appreciate you coming here and breaking it down, and at least we've got, it seems like a couple months, actually, might as well just say it's a couple of weeks head start, because June's gonna be here like that.
Well, we plan to have the budget stuff done by April.
That's what I mean, it's like, it's gonna be go, 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 go.
Yeah, we agreed on day one to move the whole schedule up, and y'all got the schedule a month or 2 ago, and we moved it all up starting December through April as opposed to February through June. So we've already taken those concerns and put them in place.
Yep, and that's good. And
Well,
that's
we
why you're
went
here. And I
last year having 2 and 3 meetings a month,
Right.
and some of them twice in a week. For something that the year before took us once a month, we figured it out, we got to June and voted on a budget. Last year, we were on the last day of the last month to vote on the budget. I would like to see a wish list, must-have list. Because I can tell you what wish I'm a grant, I'm a little fairy, but I can tell you what I'm not gonna grant.
Well, you know, that's the point of us having the committee meetings and allowing, when we change the rules of procedure, allowing the commissioners to talk one-on-one and communicate with the department heads rather than hearing everything straight from
one person.
one person. So, you know, they're able to sell, if you will, the things that they need along with working together with me, with finance, with whatever,
Well,
so
last
that
year
you
they
guys
did their
understand
presentation.
really what's going on and
Well, that was
understand,
part of it.
you know, where we're headed, so.
having talking with the department heads and them coming and sharing with us has really been a plus. And I think that, we know right up front what's going on. We don't have to get secondhand information that most of the time is incorrect. So, I feel really good with the department head telling me exactly what they need, and I'm here to see.
Okay, I would like, before we switch gears to the next thing, to take a 5-minute break, and whoever beats me to the bathroom is gonna get hurt. So let's break for 5 minutes. Thank you. Excuse me, Tony.
Why is it so cold in there?
Because I opened the door.
Excuse me, guys.
Ms. Wills asked me a question when we were at break, and that was, when I was on the board at East Richland County Public Service District, what did we do? I told you when I first got there, the service years requirement was 5 years. You could leave or go to work somewhere else, and if you retired from the state retirement system from, let's say, Richland County or City of Columbia, once you retired, you could go back and have the district start paying your health insurance for you. There was no minimum age. Okay, so as soon as you were eligible for state retirement, you could retire and then you could take your benefit leave. And so we recognized it as a problem when the actuaries first came out with our number. And our number at that time, under those criteria, the whole district only had 42 employees. Okay? And so our number, using that criteria here, was about $4.4 million. All right? And our annual cost, which is a combination of these two numbers, was about $400,000. Your annual cost is between $700,000 and $800,000 every year. Okay? And so we were at $4.4 million and about a $400,000 annual cost. And so we asked ourselves what was fair. 5 years minimum service years, we all agreed was not fair. Through back and forth, we went to because of some of the current situations that we had, we went 18 years. That's a weird number, but like I said, it was back and forth because we had some people that were in a certain situation we wanted to try to take care of. So we made it an 18-year period that you had to serve the district. Okay? And we also said that that had to be from where you retired from. In other words, you couldn't serve 18 years, go to work in Saluda County for another 10, get on state retirement, and come back and get a benefit from us. I mean, your last 18 years had to be with East Richland County. Okay? We put a minimum age. We took it to 65, and that was a little too high for some folks to take, so we negotiated that down to 62 as the minimum age of retirement. Those two numbers, of course, Mr. Bleshey, being, at the time, full Social Security was at 65, and reduced Social Security for most folks was 62. We had a strong argument to take the minimum age down to 60. But the compromise was at 62 years old. So we raised the service requirement from 5 years to 18 years. We made those 18 years, you had to be your last 18 years with the district. Okay, minimum age was 62 now. And then we decided that we would not pay for or allow spouses or dependents to be covered under this. All right? When we did all that, our number went from $4.4 million to just under $2 million, and our annual cost went from about $440,000 to about $220,000.
Were you on the state plan?
No.
Okay. You can't do that on the state plan.
What?
Basically, you cut everything in half.
Well, the numbers came back. We didn't know what was going to happen. See, the horse in front of the cart is the eligibility criteria and benefits you offer. The cart itself is the plan. So we defined the criteria for eligibility, and we defined what the benefits would be, and then we found out what the price tag was based on that scenario. And you're right, you can't do what I just talked about in the state plan. The district had gone back and forth from the state plan to a regular, what I call a regular Blue Cross plan. And some years it came back favorable, some years it didn't. And unless it's really, really favorable one way or the other, you never, ever, ever want to make a switch like that because it's an administrative nightmare. There were a few years because of some of our census stuff that it made a whole lot of sense to move from the state to Blue Cross, and then a time later, it made a whole lot of sense to move away from Blue Cross back to the state.
I don't think you can do that anymore. I think once
You
you
have
leave
to
the
wait.
state, you can't
I
come back.
think you're right now.
You can't go back for 4 years.
That's what it was. It used to be, I think it used to be 2, and they might have expanded it to 4, but you're right. It's not something you do willy-nilly every year. But that's the situation we were in. It cut our liability in half and it cut our costs in half. Well, what it did, we had a $220,000 amount that we needed to pay every year to fund this thing. Well, we were able to find that in the budget, right? So right now you've got a roughly, let's call it $710,000 annual cost. That's not money. And so your funding sources, we've talked about those. But what if it was only $300,000? That's a lot easier. You can get there a lot easier. And like at the East Richland, we felt like we still took care of our people. There were some folks who were very unhappy, and we even had some folks leave. But we as a board decided that that was fair. And when we walked out of that board meeting, that commission meeting, we told everybody, employees, they had to tell the newspaper, this is what we decided, and this is the way it's going to be. We had to balance the interest of ratepayers with the employees. We tried to come up with something we thought was fair, and again, fair was fair to both. Now those rules might not even, that criteria might not even apply here. You got firefighters, you got folks picking up solid waste. All we had was a wastewater plant. That's all we did. We processed 10 million gallons of wastewater a day. 17,000 customers, just ma'am.
One thing that makes James Island Public Service unique, we do more than just one service. Like many of these PSDs only have one or maybe 2 things that they are concerned about. So they can afford to do whatever, but we have 4. We have 4. And I don't think there's not another PSD in South Carolina who is doing as many as we are. Who else is doing it?
I don't remember what it is, but when I first before I got elected, I went on to the public service website, and there's something like 5 of them in the entire state. And there's us and one other one that has an elected board that has more than one. Very, very few out of 200 and some odd public service districts. There's only like 5 of them.
I think one of them is East
As many as we do.
East Richland.
I don't remember what they are.
All we do is wastewater. That's all we did.
I don't remember who they are or where they are or anything like that.
There's 1 or 2. These are mostly in the upstate.
Right.
They do. This is the rural upstate. They have fire. They have a rescue squad, and then there's some that have natural gas, electricity, water, and sewer, and solid waste. I mean, so there's some that have, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6. They're not many, and they're far between. But you've got, especially in the rural areas, you've got things like that.
Well,
They don't have a website.
Because I've been going to the special purpose district for the last 20 years, and there weren't that many. There were maybe a few.
Right. Just there's not that many.
And so we need to do something.
Okay, your partner has an hour and a half, so somebody needs to talk fast.
I've already been through everything I have for you guys.
Thank you, Patsy. That was good though. I mean, it's good to be able to see it like this. Somebody will stand up there and say, now look at this and look at this, and then we don't have anything to look at.
I think you're going to see a change coming. You folks have the tools now with the software they're talking about. It's designed specifically for this kind of thing.
Thank you.
Come up with $9 million. We get a copy of that sent to us without anything other attached to it, but just something we can
Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, not tied to the main system, but it just sits there on our computer. We can as the budgets come in, requests from the department.
James, when are you ready to send out the,
I'm not sure on that, I can send them last year to look at now, and then we'll
Are you gonna do
fill it
something?
in when we get the
No,
new one.
no, I'm just along the
Judging by
ride.
that, that'd be a good
You're
place
done?
to
All
start.
right, at least you can get
We're
familiar
done?
with the
I
layout.
think we can adjourn.
If you're okay with that.
absolutely?
Mr.
If
Laughlin,
you're done, he's done.
Mr.
Do that
Laughlin
tomorrow.
asked a question.
Huh?
He's talking.
He's talking.
Mr. Wolfman had a question.
Trust me, I'm sorry, but I can't hear squat from about you. Y'all gotta have an assertive voice.
So Mr. Game is gonna send you guys all an Excel spreadsheet of what was last year's.
It's similar to this here.
A summary and allow you to play with the numbers, and as soon as he gets the rest of the figures in from the city, I believe is one
County,
thing
right,
we're
county,
waiting on
right.
the county.
Right.
Everybody's budget has been submitted, so he has everybody's
The rough
wants and
drafts of
wishes,
everybody's wish
so,
list, right. We'll get that out as soon as we can, right?
And then one last thing.
And I do apologize, Alan, I swear, I'm gonna wear my hearing aid next time. But I don't hear you, like she just told me, I didn't even realize it, but y'all gotta talk loud.
Well, he was pointed that way too, so that probably, when you turn your head, you can't.
Probably outside and then several.
Probably Miss Engelman did an automatic start.
All right,
Oh,
everybody
that's right.
finished question wise, or you need anything else to add?
The only thing I wanted to say is that, Ms. Kolizinski has been working on some, I guess, ideas for the insurance that she will present during the budget process, whether it's raising age or raising, a bunch of the stuff that we talked about, she's already got down on paper and is gonna present through the budget process for you guys to think about.
I'm glad you said that. Did we ever figure out how we're gonna attack the fire department versus the regular employees for insurance and all like that? What we're gonna do?
I have not heard anything back from Chip
So we,
on the board's
we're
report.
still sitting in limbo on that.
As far as I understand, you do not have to provide a report for us. But Chip has
We
not
got
given
one of
us,
them.
Chip has not given us back that.
I just wanna let all y'all know that I have invited PIBA to come next Tuesday. And our employees are gonna be learning about the retirement program. Not OPEB, but their actual retirement. And any of you that would like to come, let me know. I'll be glad to
What time
put you on
is
the
it?
agenda. There's one at 10 and there's one at 12:30.
Who's coming,
Thank
Miss?
you, thank you. I saw this
George
on-
Haven and
Next
Dallas
Tuesday,
Brewer.
people coming to give the employees kind of a breakdown of what's going on.
It's the retirement system.
Yeah.
And it's for midterm employees that aren't quite ready to retire, but they need to be getting prepared for it. And then we're gonna have a few sessions for, one-on-one sessions for people that are very close to retirement, within 3 years, if they wanna sit down with the representatives and talk to them.
You said 10 and 12,
10 and 12:30.
so then the presentations are about, what, an hour and 15?
Well, we're gonna have, it'll probably be about an hour for PIBA, and then it'll be an hour with the 401K and 457B representative.
Thank you. Anybody else need anything before we adjourn? Speak now for hold your peace. Call for adjournment. I move we adjourn. Ms. Everhart White. Do we need a roll call that we're adjourning?
It's a workshop.
It's up to you all. You
Y'all
all
know I
voted to do
did
it.
forget last time, cause I was
We're adjourned.
befuddled the whole meeting.
We done. We're adjourned.
All right,
We did.
go home.